Hi, my name's Stewart Fleming and I am a business coach and a serial entrepreneur. Tonight we are doing Conjuring Courage, how to be braver than you ever thought possible. This is a digital solutions webinar brought to you by Business Station and Regional Development Australia. Now, tonight I'm going to be going a little bit off script because I'm just excited with this particular topic. I have found my way secure through a bunch of different journeys to courage, and I want to give you guys as much as I can to be completely bulletproof for the rest of your life. I know it seems like a lot to try and fit into 60 minutes, but I'm coming off a high after an incredible day of, I think we had I've done 14 coaching sessions already this week. I think today was 6, and I'm coming out of a high, and I want to give you guys as much as possible. Now, there's only a few of you on, and I know the rest of you are going to get the recording. If you are on, I want you to take notes that make sense to you. Every single webinar from me is like drinking from the fire hydrant. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of things coming at you reasonably quickly. The trick with drinking from the fire hydrant is to take small sips. So by that, I mean, write down what your own aha moments. Write down the things that appeal to you, either what I'm saying or an idea that is sparked by what I'm saying, or an idea that you just had when you're trying to ignore me. I don't care. I will never know. But you will take away things that make sense to you, and that's the point. Okay, so let's move into it, because I really want to I'm so excited to be doing this tonight. I really am. You might see I'm bouncing a little bit. This is going to be cool. So you do get to ask questions. If you're watching the recording, you don't. You just have to go with the flow. You can skip to the end and just find out the answer. It was Mr. Green in the ballroom with the candlestick. There we go. That's the answer. I hope you've enjoyed the webinar, and we'll catch you next time. And for the rest of us, we're going to keep moving, because now we're trying to conjure some real courage. I just assume people are going to skip to the end, so we might as well give them the answer now. I'm not sure what the answer is. They've got to work out what the question is. So let's have a look at some expectations for tonight. As you can see from that quote there from me, that coaching is the foundation on which all other virtues are built. And I honestly believe that. Courage allows you to do everything else. You cannot be the carer that you could be unless you're courageous. You cannot be the business owner. You cannot be the parent unless you have some courage. So all other virtues for me, I see built on this one, and I'm going to try and give you the best version possible. So we're going to talk about what it is, the systems at work, changing the mindset, some courage in your business, and some courage hacks and some group exercises. But as I already said, I'm probably going to be going off script, because I really want to make sure you get the most out of tonight. If I can help you take another step to being bulletproof. And by that, I mean nothing upsets you. You have courage to do whatever it is you need. In every situation, let's have a look at what that looks like. So what is courage? And as I said, I will I've got the chat window open. If you've got a question, throw it in there, and we will keep moving. What is courage? Now, for some, it's just taking action. And that's cool. If that's where your courage sits, fantastic. If that's all it means to you, you may be missing a couple of nice points. What if it was making a wise choice in the face of fear? So courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is seeing it and then making a wise choice in that moment. What if it was being honest with ourselves and others? Now, I ran a webinar series long before COVID for a year. And the first rule of this group was no lying. Rule number 1, do not lie. And it wasn't about lying to other people. It was about lying to yourself. What lies do you tell yourself? What's the truth? And why do you keep telling them? Accepting what we cannot change and changing what we can. Is that just courage? For sure. Letting stuff go. Absolutely. What in your world right now should you be letting go of? There's going to be a ton of these kind of questions tonight. And if it's nothing, that's fine. If there is something, great, write it down. Forgiving those that hurt us. This is a cool one. Who has hurt you that you haven't forgiven yet? And if you are like almost everyone, it's not an external person. Ooh, Stu's getting deep. Yeah, Stu's getting deep. It's cool, right? Do you need to forgive yourself for anything? What would that take? And when you get to that, when you start to ask these kinds of questions, how can you choose joy in all circumstances? Is that courage? You might say, okay, Stu, that sounds pretty obvious. You should. Yeah, you should. But do you have the courage to? What would you need to let go of and have courage to let stuff go? Look, that's the thing, isn't it? In letting stuff go, we have to have the courage to let that go. We are built up of our fears. We take identity from our concerns. But if we didn't, if we had the courage to let those go, and I do absolutely know, I don't know who I'd be without that, and therefore I can't let it go. In that case, your fear is serving you. It's giving you an identity, and it will take courage to let that go. Well, Stu, I hear you ask, what the hell has any of this got to do with business? This is a business webinar. What courage do you need in your business? If you can forgive yourself, what will that do for your business? If you are honest with yourself about your own abilities and those around you, how will that change your business? If you can have the courage to take action when you're necessary and make wise choices in the face of fear, what will that do for your business? If you can choose joy in all circumstances, what would that do for your business? Do you think people want to do business with someone who's happy all the time? And I'm not talking about clowns, because they'd be scary, right? Have a think about those questions. And as I said at the start, write down what appeals to you. Write down the questions that you want to answer. And I'm not looking for answers straight away. I want you to ponder whatever question appeals to you. Take it seriously. As I said, I'm trying and put you on the road to being bulletproof, to being super courageous, to be able to conjure courage. I didn't pick the word because it just sounds cool. I believe you can conjure it when you need to, when you know how. The first step is understanding what it is you're trying to conjure. So whether it's action, decisions under fire, making wise choices in the face of fear, being honest with yourself, or accepting what you cannot change, because that takes courage. Forgiving those that hurt you, whether it's yourself or anybody else, and choosing joy in all circumstances. Which is the one you need to conjure right now, and are they different? All right. How are you finding this? Are you okay with me going a little bit off script? Cool. Can you see how this affects your business? I find in almost every business that the biggest obstacle is the person at the top. And if you can get out of your own way, if you can get out of your business's way, business knows where it wants to go. It shouldn't be hard, by the way, either. It seems to be a theme for this week. People think business should be hard. It's not hard. You just haven't worked out an easy way of doing it yet. And it should be fun wherever possible. Choosing joy in all circumstances, right? You should enjoy it. You really should. I give you permission to enjoy your business journey. All of it. And it's interesting. Who the hell am I to give you that permission? Shouldn't you give it to yourself? Sometimes that's very hard. And so sometimes for some people, it's useful to hear it outside. Somebody else do it. All right, without questions, I'm going to move on. Try and stick a little bit to script. Let's look at the systems at work. So we have a bunch of different brains. And I'm going to talk about them as if they are all separate, but they're all part of you. So please take what I'm saying a little bit with a grain of salt, but also this is really cool stuff and really useful. So your human brain is broken into monkey brain, lizard brain, and human brain. So the human brain, your prefrontal cortex, you can see things in the future. You can imagine things that have never existed. And as far as we can tell, we are the only species able to do this. You then have the monkey brain, and then you have your lizard brain. So this isn't because, you know, monkey and we were once from a lizard. No. What this is talking about is the fact that your brain has three main functions, and, you know, people break it up to make it easier. So to call it human, monkey, and lizard brain. The lizard brain keeps everything ticking along without you thinking about it. The monkey brain is your reward and sacrifice part that does bits and pieces, and then your human brain is your, you know, thinking of future ahead. And that's kind of cool, and it does a bunch of stuff, and it's, you know, probably one of the most complicated things that we even know about. We still don't know how it all works. We know lots of stuff about it. We're learning lots about it, but it's a beast. Then you have a heart brain. Now, your heart brain is probably, out of all of these, the smallest. You'll talk about, and there's sort of research on, you know, is that where the emotions come from? And, you know, it sort of fits nicely because, you know, your heart and your emotions, but honestly, probably not, but some of them maybe. One of the more cool things that if you look into research is the way that the heart transmits electromagnetic waves outside your body that can be detected. Latest research I saw was up to 15 feet can be detected outside your body, and the research is now looking at the theory is that flocks of birds don't necessarily change direction based on visual acuity. That means they see the lead bird move. It's they feel that through, well, it's actually through their gut, but it's coming from the heart. And it's a really fast way of getting information when your eyes are sort of looking forward most of the time. Now, birds, that's not the case, but we still feel that's the way. And that's, you know, if you look at schooling fish and all of that sort of stuff, it certainly has some credence. It has some, you know, it feels like there could be elements of truth in that. So your heart brain, kind of cool. I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because I really want to get to your gut brain and your microbiome. Now this, for me, is where your courage lives. This is where anxiety lives. So it's the opposite is the lack of anxiety. If you have a very strong microbiome, that's why it's the big circle. Your microbiome, your gut bacteria determines so much about you. It's crazy, like crazy. Your microbiome determines things like how much weight you have, how quickly your hair grows, your skin color, your skin complexion, the speed of growth of your fingernails, obviously digestion and all of the rest of that stuff that goes along with that. But your ability to cope with anxiety comes from your microbiome and its reaction with your gut. How is this useful, and how is it useful in my business? As we said with courage, understanding what the systems are going on gives you power. Knowing what you're trying to courage and where it's going to come from is going to be useful. So, what else do we know about the gut brain that's useful? And by gut brain, I'm including gut and microbiome, just for future reference. Well, we know that it's about as smart as a demented house cat. Right? It knows feeding time, it knows time. It knows patterns of time. It doesn't know time. It certainly doesn't know language. But it certainly has a memory, and it absolutely has a controlling part of what's going on in the rest of your system. So the vagus nerve that travels around the body, it's the big nerve that controls your voice, but it actually passes most of your other organs on the way from that. So it actually goes down and then comes all the way back up to reach your vocal cords, which is why when people are nervous, you can hear it in their voice, because the vagus nerve is being affected by that. So the gut brain, the microbiome, the enteric nervous system, let's call it that because that's the proper name for it. The enteric nervous system starts at your lips and ends at your anus. It's everything in between, which is why from anxiety, you can develop cancers and ulcers everywhere from the mouth, the neck, the throat, the stomach ulcers, and then all of your polypy bits and all the way to piles. Right? Now, I'm not saying that anxiety is the only thing that will cause those, but there's certainly a correlation between anxiety, stress, and things that go on in the microbiome and gut, or the enteric nervous system, as I said, we're going to call it that from now on. So now that you know that the enteric nervous system or the gut brain does not have language and does not get time, it will explain to you why I can't talk you out of being anxious. It's not entirely true. Now, normally I would stop there and just keep going, but it's actually not entirely true. I can talk you out of being anxious, but the way I do it is I invoke in you emotions that will talk to the gut brain and show the gut brain that this is okay. And so what I'm actually doing is showing rather than telling. The faster way is the shortcut is walk it off. So again, this is a generalization, but if you were looking at signs of body language and there's fidgeting in the hands, that's usually coming from the brain that's sitting above the neck, your head. If they're twitching with their feet, it's usually from the gut brain, anxiety. Again, generalization, you have to take that into consideration with a bunch of other factors. But I absolutely know that if you have a massive gut-brain reaction, your feet will take you out of the space. Which explains things like people stampeding in a fire situation before they even knew there was a fire. The heart brain of everybody else was going into panic mode. They can sense that, and then their legs start to move before their body or their brain has worked out what the hell's going on. So for sure, There's a comment there, making everything super tense, clenching every muscle and suddenly releasing can help. Yeah, why does that help? Because what you're doing is you're not removing the anxiety, you're dealing with the side effect of that. What you're doing is using up adrenaline and you're taking the edge off it. So that's dealing with the symptom rather than the cause. Great example though. So let's deal with the cause if we can. Your gut brain doesn't have direct access to your eyes. It certainly doesn't know what your brain thinks and couldn't understand it even if it did. It's not that smart. So you have to give it small chunks of information in something it can understand, such as motion, such as walking, hence the phrase walk it off. So one of the most useful ways if you are in a tense situation is to point your feet towards where that isn't. Seriously, just pointing your feet is showing your gut brain that there is a way out. When I work with people who have stage fright and nerves, we had an example. I was at a venue and there were kids, 3 kids that were going to be getting up and speaking for the first time in front of a group of business people. And you could see they were, what's the colloquial term? Shitting broken glass. So what I did was I said, look to the teacher, can I borrow them for a sec? And she said, yes. I walked them into the venue where they were going to be presenting and I got them to stand on stage. And I said, I want you to say these words to yourself. This is where I belong. This is where I'm going to be awesome. And then go and sit down and then say the same thing about the space you just left, that's my space over there. Now, it may not be true for them right now, but by saying it, they're telling their gut brain that this may be true. Gut brain's still trying to work it out. Then what we did was we went to the door that we just walked in and I got each of them to practice opening it and feel the weight of it, get emotionally connected to this door. And then we walked outside the building and I said, I want you to smell the air out here, then step back in, smell the air in there. See how it's different? You have permission to leave if things get bad, and this is the way out. You know how to open the door. You know the weight of the door. You know how many steps between that door and this door. You know what it smells like outside. They were amazing. Now, I'm not saying they weren't nervous, but what we've done is we've shown the microbiome, the gut, the enteric nervous system, that it was going to be okay. There's a way out. And so their gut brain was, okay, well, I'm here, but I can leave if I need to. Your anxiety, your courage comes from understanding the systems that are at work and then using that knowledge to apply when you feel fear. I had the example, I worked with a guy in South Africa. We traveled around South Africa. We did, I don't know, 14 stops around South Africa, teaching new businesses how to get started. And I knew my stuff super well, right? And you turn up, I just do it, and he'd get up and do the introduction. I'd get up and do the meat and potatoes of the thing, and then he'd get up and clean it up with a desserty type stuff, and it was awesome. He came to town, he was in the Gold Coast for a while, and I was in Brisbane, and he said, I'm coming to do a presentation on something completely different. You should come along and we can catch up afterwards. So I sat in the front row as I normally do when he's presenting. I had this massive anxiety attack. Like, what is going on? Like, my gut's all tied up in knots, to the point where I had to physically stand up and walk to the back of the room and sit in the back row, with the next step being, I need to get out of here, and I'm not sure why. Now, in the back of the room, I realized, it took me a while because, not the brightest. When I sit at the front of the room, I'm the next to present, and I don't know what he's presenting. Therefore, I'm about to stand up and present on something I have no idea about. This is that dream where you get on stage and you've forgotten your pants. That was my gut brain's reality in that situation. Now, my human brain knew that wasn't the case. My gut brain did not. right? It knows routine. It knows you sit here, you get up there. And so I had a little chat to my gut brain and I said, right, this is how we're working. And this is a different trigger. This is something that's now different. And we definitely do not have to get up and present. And the only preparation I need for this is, do you want a coffee or not afterwards? So I changed the way I would prepare. I set that as a new routine and I went and sat at the front to see if it would work. And I was relaxed. So a bunch of stuff to unpick there. Microbiome, gut brain, anxiety. Like I feel that's where pretty much all of your fear comes from. But there may be stuff that doesn't. And so we're going to move on. As always, if there are any questions, jump in. I'm kind of staying a little bit to script here. This is pretty cool. So when it is not the microbiome, how do you change the mindset? What is your new fear response? So if you had to describe anxiety, really strong anxiety or fear, what are the kinds of things that you would notice in your physical reaction? Could it include an elevated heart rate? Prickling skin, yeah. Shortness of breath, clenching of the gut. What is excitement then for you? Real excitement. Could it also include prickling skin, shortness of breath when you're really, really excited? What you'll notice is the reactions are very similar. So are you scared or are you excited? Which brings me to one of the more infamous quotes I got from someone. Yeah, right, get it. You know, excitement and scared could be the same thing. So I was so excited, I nearly shit myself. Maybe he wasn't excited. So the idea of having a look at what this is for you, what are your markers? When do you start to notice this going on, and what is your fear response? Where do you feel it? Where do you feel this one right now? It might be different. One of the cool things, and this is, yeah, again, go off script a little bit for a bit, but I already have permission to do that. So one of the other cool things about understanding courage is that it's not pegged in time. So I'm going to go, yeah, okay. So you have something that you may be nervous about, anxious about, scared about. Doesn't matter what it is, whatever label you give it, you have this thing, right? You've recognized it. But this is a moment in time and you feel this now. So can you put your hand up if there's something, anything that you can think of that might scare you? Just want to make sure everyone's got one. Yep, has everybody got something that they, yep, perfect, excellent. So I want you to think about that. And if whatever that thing is, if you had done this 1,000 times over the next 5 years, whatever this thing is, you've done it 1,000 times. So I can see that one is conflict. I'm not sure what the others are, but let's assume you've done it 1,000 times. What does the version of yourself now think of these things, given that you've done it 1,000 times? And the way, if you get stuck on this, the way to think about it is, what are you already really good at that you started off being rubbish at? And for most of us, it could be just driving the car, right? So yeah, so there's this idea that the experienced version of yourself knows how to deal with it, and we'll just deal with it, right? But now that you've made that leap, what's stopping you from being that now? Now, logically, you'll say, well, I haven't made the journey, but you just did in your brain. And your brain cannot tell the difference between a real event and a well-imagined event. So you've just made the journey. You already know what it's going to be like. How can you be that now? Well, you just can. Again, I give you permission to be the future version of yourself that you need to be right now. Now, you can go the long way around if you want and go and get all the experience and pay your dues, or you can just imagine that you've already paid your dues and jump to the head of the queue. Choice is yours, always. I started tonight talking about what would those attributes of courage, what would they do to your business? Hopefully that sparks some thoughts. So what would the ability to be your future self give to your business? It's these insights into who you want to be and how that person reacts to things that gives you a massive leap forward. And I hate to say that it will work every time, but I've not found where it doesn't yet. Just not the same thing. That's not to say this will work every time. I just haven't found a way it doesn't work yet. What does the fearless version of yourself do in your business? What does the version of yourself that can conjure up courage whenever necessary and banish fear, what would that change in your business? How would you see things differently? What would you do differently? I'm giving you lots of space because I'm hoping that there's some sparking some thoughts and you're writing some stuff down that appeals to you, that makes sense to you. I remember someone telling me that one of their greatest motivations was the statement, what would I do if I couldn't fail? And, I thought that was really wise at the time. And now I think, what would I do if I couldn't fail? I'd probably stop. Because I don't see failure as a bad thing. Failure is growth. I've tried stuff, I've experimented, and I've found new ways. And that's what I find joy in. I don't find joy in failure. That's not the same thing. What would I do if I couldn't fail? What would you do if you were never scared? Way different. You may still fail, but you won't be scared of it. You'll accept it and you'll move on and you will learn from it and you'll grow. And it does not change who you are ever. I'm going to seriously go off topic here, because the best way to have Infinite courage is to understand exactly who you are. You are not the titles that you have given yourself or the titles that have been thrust upon you. Son, daughter, mother, father. You are not those. You are those, but you're also not. You are more and you're different. So who the hell are you? And if you can work that out, then absolute courage is yours. Total fearlessness. One of the major reasons that you get scared is because it's going, whatever you are scared of will change your opinion of yourself. It may prove something that you believe about yourself to be wrong. This is one of those really big ones. And that can be absolutely terrifying. If you are the label that you have chosen for yourself or the label that someone else has chosen for you, and we take that label away, then who are you? And you'll see, you know, you are not your car, you are not your money, you are not your house. It's all great. You're none of those things. But you're also not your relationships. You're not your successes, nor are you your failures. One of the greatest problems that I see from people espousing wisdom, it just does my head in, is this idea that I am who I am because of what I have been through. And look, I get there will be different opinions on all sorts of stuff, and you can, what I am saying is my opinion, and take it or leave it. It's up to you. This is what works for me. I am not who I am because of what I have gone through. I am who I am despite what I have gone through. I will give no power to that which has gone before. I would have always been me. It would just be a different path. The danger is if you believe that who you are is because of some external circumstance, then if you take that away, who are you? And what are you using? Why is that serving you? Wouldn't it just be better just to be you, the real version of you, the pure version of you? That's proper courage. And it is, I get it. It can be scary saying that you want to be that, or even allowing yourself to be that. But honestly, if you can connect with that version of yourself that is none of those things and yet all of them, and I realize that sounds like it's like some sort of cryptic riddle. It's actually not when you're there. You can do whatever you want. You'll do it with the right reasons. You won't do it because of some external thing that caused you to do this. You'll do it because those are your values that you have discovered and uncovered from the moment that you were conceived. Possibly before. You got to check with other people who know more about that stuff than me. Strip away everything that you've done. Who are you? And now I know that from time to time, you know, you'll come across this idea of personality profiles and strength tests and disc profiles, star signs. We have massive brains, and it is really, really useful to put things into boxes. In fact, without that, we couldn't survive. We need to be able to categorize and chunk things down and let things make sense to us. Okay. It's absolutely required. But because you're a Scorpio does not mean that you can't choose to be a Virgo. Just because you are one side of a disc profile does not mean you cannot choose to be the other side when necessary. Sure, you may not be great at it because you haven't practiced it much, but you could. One of the greatest things that I found when I started digging into this stuff was around values. Oh, your values never change. Rubbish. Your values can absolutely change, and I can prove it. Every single person has it within them. Now, you may default back to a standard set, but you could default back to something else if you practiced it enough. So if this is true, and I'm telling you it is because I can prove it, if you can have any values when necessary, what values are going to be useful to you in your business right now? Let's say you've got particular tasks that you need to do, and you, as a rule, value big picture thinking. How are you going to attack that task? How are you going to get on with that task? All right, you've got answers. Yep, you didn't have to think about it too hard. What if you were a detail-focused person? What would you do differently? Now, if you're like almost everybody I've met, you already have answers for that. What if you are empathic as your number one value? You care for people above all else, and that's the thing that's important to you right now. What would you do differently? What if you were money focused, profit focused? What would you do differently now? There are so many different elements to you. To say that you are one type is that people use it as an excuse. Well, I am a Virgo, therefore I will blah, blah, blah. I'm a Scorpio, so I'm this in the disc profile. I'm that. I have this value. Great. If you have that value, you're already good at it. Which one do you want to be good at? Which one would help? Which one should you be practicing? I had one of my very, very first clients, once I started down the road of coaching. So I've been unofficially doing it for years, but that doesn't count until you've done a coaching course. So one of my very, very first official coaching clients valued humor as his number one trait, right? But he was already the funniest dude I know. He was awesomely funny. And so the question was, if you're already there, what's the next one? Which one do you want to focus on and improve? Because you're already super funny. Do you need to be funnier? No, I'm just happy there. And that's who I am. Fantastic. So who do you want to be next? What skills and values do you want to put on that would help you move forward? Because currently it doesn't look like you are. And that's what this was him saying it. He knew he wasn't moving on. And so what do you choose for yourself next? And look, it doesn't have to be a choice forever. This is a choice, right? The sun comes up every single day and you get to make a new choice every day. And just because you've made bad decisions in the past does not mean you need to make bad decisions going forward. You have permission to make new choices every day because the sun comes up and tells you so. Or you get on a webinar and the bloody coach tells you so. You know what they say, if at first you don't succeed, try doing what your coach told you to do the first time. I had to write a whole series of quotes for my magazine on coaching. I didn't have to write them. I went looking for them. I couldn't find any, so I sat down and wrote them, and that was one of my first ones. If at first you don't succeed, try doing what your coach told you to do the first time. I've actually had it sent back to me now as a quote for coaching. Now, maybe someone else came up with it as well, but I definitely know I wrote it from my head, which is cool. So, who do you need to be? Who do you want to be? Who can you choose to be? And when? Now, if you are definitely not a detail person, what that means is you definitely have not practiced being a detail person. And so when you need to be a detail person, you'll probably stuff it up a little bit. But when you learn any skill, you stuff it up a bit. How do you get better at it? You practice it. How else do you get better at it? You model your behavior on someone who was already good at it. This is that whole idea behind what would Jesus do? I don't know, but I know what Jesus would do, so I do that. What would the most detailed focused person you know do? And if that's you, what would the most biggest picture person do? How would they behave? We have a part in our brain, like our human brain, that is set to mimic. This is why we've done so well as a species, because we're the storytelling monkey, right? We tell stories about ourselves and everybody else, and we understand that the empathic part of our brain takes that on, which is why stories are so cool. Authors get this. That idea that the story soaks in, you feel it in your bones, is because the empathic part of your brain is mimicking what's going on and imagining that that is you. So you can do the same thing in your business. When you need to have a finance person looking at stuff, what is the most financially competent person and how would they look at this? Now, there's technical details you won't know yet. But if a financial person was looking something and they didn't have the technical details, what is the first thing they do? Would they try and work it out themselves, or would they phone someone for support? I'm a reasonably smart guy. There are times I think I'm a genius, but that's okay. But I'm reasonably smart. But I have rules for so much. And one of my rules is the moment I don't know something, I say I don't know it, because acknowledging it is really, really useful. Hi, I'm Stewart, I'm alcoholic. That's the first rule. The reason is you've got to acknowledge it. The next question is, who already knows this? Not where can I find the answer, it's who. Who gets you there way faster. So if you are channeling the most financially smart person and you realize you don't know something and you're actually channeling them and they don't know it because you're now them and they're now you, and split personalities, what would they do? They'd find someone that knows more than them. Who is the expert on this and how do I find them? What's the question I need to ask? The problem with using Google is that your questions are almost always going to be poorly formed unless it is a technical question to which you have asked a lot very similar to it. I use Google when I'm looking, when I'm writing code and I want to do something very specific and I can't remember how to do it. My question is well formed. I'm asking about a specific language and a specific type, and because I've asked so many of these questions, I know how to phrase the question to give me the right result so that Google serves me. But if you're asking stuff about stuff you don't know about, it's massively difficult to ask the right question of Google. But if you explain the problem to a person, they get it and they'll tell you what you need to hear, not what you necessarily asked. The courage comes from asking. How will that change your business? I'm pretty sure you can work that one out. Any questions? Because I have rambled and it's been fun and I hope you're taking lots away from this. As I said, I'm really excited about tonight because I really wanted to, this is going to be my second last webinar as part of this program. And it's one of my most exciting topics because I understand what it is like to live without that fear, to be able to have courage in every moment. And if it's a gift, I could bottle it. Could you imagine what I could sell it for? And you have that within you. You've got to do a little bit of work. What's my song for courage? I don't have a song for courage because I'm fearless. Isn't that cool? I do have uplifting songs that I use to get my heart rate up and that I really love listening to. I have songs for optimism that I really love listening to. For me, Timbuk 3, The Future's So Bright, You've Got to Wear Shades. My walk-on song is Back in Black by AC/DC. And honestly, you'll hear, if you've been with me at functions, you may have already heard it because the Back in Black starts with you know what comes next. Bum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. But for me, all I need is there you go. That's it. That's mine. Let's, I'm going to finish up in a few minutes, but I'm going to whip through the rest of the slides so I can say I did them. Courage in your business. If you could be bulletproof, if you could be courageous in all situations, what would that do for your staff? Business courage should be encouraged and rewarded. Let your staff experiment, get yourself out of the way, let them make mistakes. Informed failure can bring huge leaps in innovation. That permission to make mistakes will create failures for sure, but informed failure, 100%, every day of the week. What would you do if you couldn't fail? I'd be bored. But if I can learn and I can experiment and I can move forward, that's what we want. We are an unsatisfied species. That's why we do so bloody well, because we're always looking for something else. So bring that out of your staff. And courage culture starts with courageous leadership. And so getting out of your own way, letting them make mistakes is courageous in itself. And that shows that you have courage and it allows them to have courage. Success leads to success. Courage leads to courage. Kind of cool, huh? All right. Again, any questions, bring them up. And I'm going to throw this in, which it's kind of, this is like the wimpiest ending ever after the stuff that I've just given you. But we're going to go through it anyway. Measure, how big is your fear? If you've got a fear, how big is it? I prefer you to be, who do you need to be to overcome it? What was the version of yourself that has already overcome it, and how do they see it now? But measuring it, super, super important. If it's important, measure it. You should write that down and tattoo it on the inside of your eyelids. And honestly, I'm not talking just about your business. If your sex life is important, measure it. If your relationships are important, measure it. If your diet is important, measure it. If feeling good about yourself is important, measure it. Anything, if it's important, measure it. It doesn't mean you have to do it forever, but you should do it. It will tell you how big the problem is, and then you can do something about it. How big is your fear? All right. Take action. Action cures fear. You've heard that a million times. What does it mean? You actually only need about 20 seconds of courage or less. 20 seconds is a lot. The courage to pick up the phone and make the call that's been bugging you for ages. The moment you have finished dialing, you have finished with your courage. You don't need courage anymore. This is already happening and you're just along for the journey. The courage is taking that first step. Talking to the most handsome man or the most beautiful woman at the bar. The moment you start the conversation, courage is banished and you are now in the moment. So you only need 20 seconds of courage. What's this going to cost you? Shift your focus from outcome to task. So I'm scared that the outcome is going to be bad. Just focus on the task. Just do that. What is the thing that you need to work on? Do. What's the task? Now, the awesome part of this is it works backwards. No, I don't mean reading the words task to outcome from focus shift, you will. Sound like bloody Yoda. No, what I mean is if the task is the problem, shift it to outcome. What is the outcome that you're focused on rather than the task? If you are scared to pick up the phone, what is the outcome that you really want that this is going to give you? And if it's the outcome that's a problem, focus back on the task and switch it up whenever you need to. The first step is recognizing which one is the problem. Ooh, it's 7 o'clock. I'm going to have to go, but I'm going to finish up. Let's continue. Practice hard. When you are the expert, the fear is replaced by knowledge and a gentle understanding that, honestly, this doesn't matter that much. Now, you can go the long way round, practice hard, or you can take the shortcut that I explained earlier and imagine that you already have. What would the 1,000 version, the 1,000 repeat version of yourself say about this job right now? It doesn't have to take a long, I don't want you to sit and meditate for 30 minutes on what that version would look like. You should be able to do that almost instantaneously. And you'll get better at this, okay? But what's the version of yourself that has done this a million times? How do they look at it? They look at it like this. Great, be that now. If you can imagine what the financial planner, the detail focused person, the big person, a big picture person, the courageous person, what would Jesus do? You can also imagine what the expert version of yourself would do. So do that. Be that person. It's cool. It really is stupidly cool. All right. Lastly, attitude. Is it fear or is it fun? Is it excitement? Is it fear? What's your attitude on it? As I said, this is the possibly the lamest ending to what I think is just the most interesting topic. And look, I have covered some cool points in that. That's not fair. But honestly, take the shortcut where you can. Stand on the shoulders of giants. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. It does not change who you are. Do not be afraid to ask for help. It does not change who you are. Do not be afraid to be wrong. The amount of times I've got to work with kids. Just because you're wrong does not mean you're different. It doesn't change who you are. That's a circumstance. Now, you probably get this, but honestly, there's a huge amount of the population that can't be wrong because it'll change who they are. No, it doesn't. Be wrong all the time. Everything is my fault. Why is everything my fault? What purpose does that serve? If everything is my fault, then I am responsible for fixing it and my brain goes into solution mode, and that works for me. I do not want to be the victim, ever. I am not a victim of circumstance. I am the hero of my own story. The way I do that is that everything is my fault. Doesn't change who I am. I'm always me. But everything is my fault. Therefore, I am responsible for fixing it. Even if I can't, I'm already trying to. The moment you put anything, whether it's a person or a circumstance, in charge, and when that changes, then you're a victim. Don't be a victim. It's not a cool place to be. All right, I said I was finishing up, and I've gone down a rabbit hole. We're not going to do the group courage exercise. Look, I am so sure that you've got tons of homework of things that you actually want to do that probably ignore this. You know, take a screenshot if you really want, but honestly, just skip it. What I really want you to do, the moment we finish here, I want you to look at the list that you've got, and I want you to highlight the ones that have actions. And if they don't have actions, what would the action be? If you can't think of one, ignore it for now. Then I want you to prioritize the actions. And then I want you to just do the one. What's the one thing that you actually really want to do that will help you move forward? You've got the actions for the rest. You've got the list. Write the list out nice somewhere and stick it on a wall. These are things that you'll do in the future. But do one thing. Take one step. be a bit better. You don't need to make a massive leap, but you do need to move forward. I'm going to stop the recording there. That doesn't mean I'm going to stop talking to you, but I'm going to stop the recording. This has been a digital solutions webinar. My name is Stewart Fleming, and I've been supported in this endeavour by Business Station and Regional Development Australia. There's a new programming coming in August. If you know any businesses or people or ABNs that have not registered so far with this particular program, they're entitled to join the new program. It's going to be awesome. I still don't have all the details, but I've been told it's going to be awesome, so I'm just repeating it. And we will catch up with you next time. If you have any specific questions about tonight's webinar, you can email me, Stewart@stewartfleming.com. Have a fabulous life.